John is a gifted child, but because he is not sufficiently stimulated, his achievement is mediocre and unfulfilling. Frequently, he is rejected by his classmates because they resent his superior ability. Barbara, too, is gifted, but her parents push her to such an extent toward intellectual activity that her social and emotional experiences are completely inadequate. These are gifted children, children with superior ability, but because they're not adequately understood by those around them, they face difficult and frustrating problems, which may lead to maladjustment and extremely negative relationships in life. But this need not be, and the gifted child should be able to find understanding and help necessary to allow his superior abilities to be directed toward meaningful and satisfying outlets.
The exceptional child, a child with differences. It is our hope that through these programs we might better understand this child and help him.
The terms genius, brilliant, superior, and a host of others are applied to characterize the gifted child. All imply outstanding ability, especially concerning intellectual capacity. But intellectual ability is not sufficient to assist the child in the achievement of a full and happy life. Social development, emotional maturity, and physical health are vitally important to the growth of all children. When any necessary aspect of human life is unfulfilled, the result is often unhappiness and frustration, leading to an unsatisfactory adjustment to the world in which the human life must function. I'm Ed Jones, your host on these programs, and today we're going to meet some of the special and dynamic problems that confront the gifted child, in the hope that through our understanding and more positive attitude, we might more effectively help this child in his efforts to achieve a constructive and rewarding relationship in the world. Too many of us have preconceived and faulty concepts of just what the gifted child is like. We often think of him as being a bookworm, reading and studying and doing nothing else. Some of us categorize the gifted child as a weakling, incapable of practical and widespread activities. Others of us tend to regard the gifted child as emotionally unstable, a genius, but a misfit, who will never be able to function outside of his own special talents. Too few of us recognize the errors in these prejudiced and extremely negative views. If the gifted child is merely one-sided or emotionally unstable, it is not because he is gifted, but because parents, teachers, and society as a whole do not adequately understand him and cannot give him the necessary guidance and stimulus to become a fully participating member of the community. Perhaps we think because he is gifted, he can be left to his own methods for achieving a satisfactory relationship in life, and we can concentrate on those who are not so gifted. But the gifted child needs the same things as any other child: love, security, recognition, and guidance. And these are obtained only through help and understanding. Here with us today to help us understand with greater meaning and insight the problems of the gifted child, we have with us Dr. Louis A. Fligler, Assistant Professor of Special Education and Head of the Program for Gifted Children at Syracuse University.
Gifted children may be found in low, middle, or upper socioeconomic level homes. They are generally above average in intellectual, emotional, social, and physical growth. Intellectually, the gifted child possesses a rich vocabulary which exceeds his chronological age group. He can abstract at high levels with unusual ability to draw inferences from known facts. Frequently overlooked is his faster rate of learning potential to absorb new information. He shows originality and creativity in thinking. The gifted child is extremely interested and curious about his environment. His interests are more varied and permanent than the intellectually normal child. These interests may range from the study of atoms to the composition of symphonies. He often likes to work independently by planning and organizing his own activities. Emotionally, the gifted child usually exhibits superior mental health and maturity in his adjustment to life. Physically, he is often taller and heavier than his normal peers. He learns how to walk and talk early and shows excellent all-around motor coordination. It is important to remember that the gifted child as an individual does not equally excel in all areas of development. Since the gifted youngster is superior in most growth patterns, he can develop into a well-adjusted individual. The home and school are important influences in creating positive attitudes. However, when the needs of the gifted child are overlooked at home or at school, underachievement and maladjustment can result.
John is a gifted child in a regular classroom. He experiences many problems in his school day. Although he's with his own age group, he is not being intellectually challenged. In this reading lesson, he feels understimulated and bored because the story is below his reading ability. Even though the reading material is uninteresting, he generally grasps concepts sooner and draws conclusions faster than the other children in the class. The children resent John's superior ability because he tries to monopolize the teacher's attention. The teacher sees his efforts to be recognized as a threat to the group's intellectual stimulation and avoids him, but he's persistent. She refuses to recognize John until the other children are ready, and then rejects him by calling on another child. John's feelings of isolation and negativism are intensified. This reaction is not unusual where the gifted youngster's needs are not met. There are a number of occasions where John and his classmates have an opportunity to become friends. He tries to become an integrated member of the group, and often the other children will attempt to create an atmosphere of friendliness. But the psychological gap between John and the group is insurmountable. Rather than admit that he's afraid of further rejection, John may demonstrate a displeasure for the activities in which the group participate. In retreat, it's only natural that John should resort to the activities where he can succeed, the intellectual area. Withdrawal may seem more comfortable at the moment, but is rather dangerous, because John is beginning to substitute books for the friendship of other boys and girls. The seeds of maladjustment have been planted, because this gifted child's needs have not been brought into wholesome perspective.
The interrelationship of home and school are linked together in the life of a youngster. Negative feelings engendered in the school may have originated in the home, where the inferior feelings of the child are intensified. Of course, the opposite situation is also true. This is where negativism originated in the school further stimulates negativism in the home. For the youngster, this is a vicious cycle which produces more frustration heaped upon failure. The gifted child finds no comfort or understanding with either parent or teacher. Very often, a dominating parent is a serious obstacle to a gifted child's well-being. This parent seeks to gain status from the gifted child's accomplishments and insists upon dictating every thought and decision. This kind of parent constantly pressures the youngster to excel in school. Barbara is an only child and is gifted. Her reading interests are 2 years beyond what is considered normal for her age, and she grasps ideas and meaning with unusual success. Her parents are proud of Barbara's giftedness and push her continually.
Hello, Mother. I found these new books at the library and thought you'd like to read them. Thank you. I'll get it. No, Barbara, that won't be necessary. You just continue with what you're doing. I'll get it.
Some already changed, long black road. Talking to myself in the cold quarter, went down the hole. Some already changed. Gotta keep going. Chance came and left. I waited for the next one. Waited for the next one. I'm the one who moves things around. Always on the outside, I say stuff that ain't true. I should shut my mouth. I should shut my mouth. When I do, I'll tell you, I'll tell you. Something already changed. Lying out in the open, can't get my head right, but I still gotta keep going. Sun already changed. Looking over the weeds, time just goes, still chasing the next thing. Chasing the next thing. I'm the one who puts it all. I'll do it later, but I still gotta keep on. Should shut my mouth. Should shut my mouth. Should shut my mouth. I'm the one who moves things around.
Somewhere around the age of 7 or 8, a certain kind of child is handed a word. It comes after a test, or an hour in a small room with a friendly stranger and a set of wooden blocks.
I should shut my mouth. When I do, I'll tell you.
The word is gifted. The child has no technical understanding of it and will not acquire one for years. What they register is the change in temperature around them, a new kind of attention that is warm and slightly formal, and a sentence repeated on the phone to a grandparent in a tone they file away permanently. The adults are reporting what they saw, they are pleased, and the pleasure is real. That is what makes the arrangement so hard to see from inside it, and so hard to take apart later. At first, the word functions as pure recognition. It says, "We have seen you, and what we saw is good." For some children, it arrives as relief, especially those who have already sensed that they are out of step with the room and that their questions land wrong. The word explains them. It names the mismatch and makes it flattering rather than shameful. Over a period no one could mark on a calendar, the terms shift, The praise stops being about the paper on the desk. Adults begin speaking about the child in a tense that does not exist yet. They will do something with that mind. The child is still in the room, 8 years old, listening, while the conversation has moved on to someone who does not exist and cannot be consulted. Something has been extended to them, and something has been asked, and the asking is buried so deep inside the giving that neither the adults nor the child could separate them if they tried. This is the thing that will need decades to undo. The child is loved in the present, sincerely, but the love is pointed at a future person. They are held partly as themselves and partly as a promissory note. The sentence that expresses this most completely arrives later, around the age when homework stops being automatic and the grades develop an interesting texture. It is not a cruel sentence. It is often said with real warmth, at the end of a long evening when a parent has run out of other approaches. Consider everything packed into those 5 words: affection because the speaker believes in something. Frustration because the belief is not being confirmed. Disappointment, faintly held back but audible. And an entire imagined life, already drafted, already partly furnished. The speaker has met someone the child has never met, and the speaker likes that person very much. What the child hears is stranger and harder to say out loud. Somewhere inside you there is a remarkable person. The one currently in this room is preventing that person from arriving. Whatever difficulty you are having is not a difficulty, because a difficulty would require help. It is a refusal. You are the obstacle to yourself. A child cannot argue with this, because the terms make argument impossible. To say I am trying invites the reply that if you were really trying, this would be easier.
Hello? Oh, hello, Carolyn. Well, she's busy right now. Tonight? No, tonight she won't be able to. Barbara started on a new project, and I don't think she'll be able to make it. Tomorrow? Well, no. We're going to the museum tomorrow. There's a new exhibit. Certainly. Perhaps next week sometime. Thank you, Carolyn. I'll tell her you called. Goodbye.
Barbara is a gifted youngster whose mother refuses to allow her any independence or individuality. The mother, under the guise of, "I'm doing what's best for Barbara," may be reliving her own unfulfilled aspirations. Barbara, in trying to live up to her mother's standards, will be extremely over-anxious to secure high marks. If she is unable to meet these expectations, her mother will exert even more pressure. Recreation is eliminated from Barbara's life so that she can spend more time with her books. Warm friendships must be excluded because the mother feels that they do not stimulate her to high achievement. This illustration represents one kind of negative home situation. In other instances, there may be parents who reject their children's giftedness and do little or nothing to encourage them. These parents may be afraid that their children will surpass them and do not realize that they are inhibiting their child's efforts. Wholesome home and school atmosphere is absolutely necessary to build adequate relationships. When these are provided, a gifted child's happiness and achievement are immeasurably enhanced.
In the life of a gifted child, friendships are important in furthering social and emotional maturity. Here are some of Nicky's friends who like to meet him on their way to school to discuss yesterday's events and plan for today. Nicky is a gifted youngster
who through his social adaptability and poise has formed genuine relationships with his friends and finds going to school a real pleasure. In this school setting, Nicky remains with his chronological age group in the morning and participates in many social and intellectual functions. He's not set apart in this program, but is considered one of the group. Although his ability in some areas is far superior to that of the other children, he is not equally superior in all areas. He needs personal communication with intellectually normal children to evaluate himself realistically. He also needs close contact with adults to find satisfaction in his future relationships with them. His teacher is an important person in helping him to do this. Each youngster receives an opportunity to share in singing songs, which provide a means for personality growth and rhythmical experiences. A group songfest is an excellent way of developing positive social attitudes. Music is a talent that Nicky does not possess to as great a degree as other gifted children. However, he's learning the enjoyment of musical expression, which is an essential factor in a balanced life. Recreation and physical development are necessary for fostering a healthy and happy individual who's capable of becoming a well-adjusted adult. Games and athletics are Nicky's strong assets. He pays close attention to the teacher's instructions and doesn't want to miss any part of the game. His leadership qualities are evident not only in intellectual areas, but in physical aspects as well. Equal opportunity does not mean the same opportunity for all children. A special class for gifted children is necessary to provide maximum growth based upon individual potential. Nicky spends part of his day in a special class where his intellectual and social needs are further met. The gifted children are drawn from a number of regular classes and are given special instruction in keeping with their capacities. In this instance, teachers in the 3rd and 4th grades select their top-level students for the special class. Generally, chronological age distribution is limited to a 2-year span to avoid unbalanced social groupings. Abstract arithmetic concepts are introduced sooner in the school curriculum and expanded more intensively than in the regular class. Nicky is learning that he doesn't have to suppress his ideas to maintain friendships and gain approval from his teacher, but that he can express himself without fear of rejection. The nature of this particular arithmetic assignment presents an individual challenge to each of the students and gives each of them an opportunity to develop new work habits. They do not complete their tasks sooner than the other children and sit around being bored, but work the full quota of time allotted to them. Mutual stimulation and the exchange of ideas are encouraged, while teacher domination is reduced to a minimum. The teacher urges the children to explore and evaluate their own work. In later years, the independence and self-direction taught in the early grades will be extremely valuable for the gifted child. Social studies is an important core of the academic program. Its content relates to the geographic, social, and cultural ideas of civilization. As an integral phase of social studies, group projects are planned by the children to crystallize and expand meaningful experiences. Working together represents the cooperative spirit so necessary to democratic ideals. Positive human relationships are also an invaluable outgrowth of this kind of activity. Although the special class has many gifted children, they are still operating at different academic levels of ability. Consequently, reading is done in small groups, and the material is at their reading level, regardless of chronological age. However, there are many new facts they still have to learn. Nicky soon discovers that he doesn't have the answers to everything and needs further information. Whenever necessary, time is given during the lesson for individual research. Adequate supplementary reading material should be available for the gifted child so that he can seek immediate answers and share them with the group. Nicky recognizes the limitation of his answer, and with his teacher motivating him, decides to investigate the problem further. This illustrates a way in which the interests of children can be broadened, not suppressed. Learning does not end within the environs of the school. Recognizing the need for completing his assignment, Nicky goes to the library to secure additional reading material. An adequate public library is a cornerstone for educating the gifted child. It is an excellent source for supplementing the limited selection of books in the school. More important, here Nicky finds a resource person, the librarian, who is ready to assist him. The question which Nicky poses to her is immediately answered with a few suggestions. Her knowledge is an open sesame to help Nicky extend his intellectual horizons. However, the choice of reading books for his individual research project represents the combined efforts of the librarian and himself. For a gifted youngster like Nicky, books are essential to help him understand the world around him and create new ideas. The home life of the gifted child
calling to the soul keeper for me.
So the child learns to perform a low-grade version of guilt, to nod, to promise, and to leave the room carrying an obligation whose size they cannot yet estimate. School teaches more than the material listed in the curriculum. Alongside fractions and photosynthesis, a child is being taught how to begin a task they do not feel like beginning, how to sit with confusion long enough for it to resolve, how to raise a hand and say the frightening sentence, "I do not understand this," how to be wrong at 11 in the morning and continue existing until lunch. A child who absorbs content quickly can travel a long way without needing any of that. Early schoolwork is calibrated for a wide range of learners, which builds in a great deal of repetition. A child who gets the concept on the first pass will spend years being asked to demonstrate, again, something already finished. They will read under the desk or drift or become the one who answers before being called on and none of it costs them anything, because the assessment at the end of the unit measures exactly the thing they did not need to work for. Adults do warn them, and the warnings are accurate and useless because the child is running a continuous experiment whose results contradict them every week. The essay started at 10 at night comes back with a good grade. The test, taken without studying, is passed. Half listening in class turns out to be sufficient. When adult advice and lived evidence disagree for 8 consecutive years, no child alive chooses the advice. So, the EASE teaches a curriculum of its own, and the lessons it teaches are crooked in ways that do not show up until much later. The first is that intelligence means speed, so understanding should arrive quickly, or it is not really understanding. The second follows: anything requiring 5 attempts must lie outside your gift. The third is more corrosive. Visible effort becomes evidence that the gift is draining away, so a person prays for how little they needed to work, reads their own straining as a symptom. The fourth does the most damage. Confusion stops being a normal stage of learning and becomes diagnostic information about the self. Everyone else's confusion means they are partway through. Yours means you were overestimated. There comes a point for nearly everyone where material stops yielding to comprehension alone and begins to require accumulation, drill, and time. Intelligence had been carrying the child upward like an elevator, smoothly, past floors. Other students were reaching some other way. When the elevator stops, the child steps out and discovers that everyone else has spent those same years learning to climb stairs, and that the stairs are not a punishment or a lesser method, but simply how the building works above a certain height. Praise is not one thing. There is praise that describes what a person did, which points at a strategy, a decision, a revision, a stubbornness that outlasted an evening. And there is praise that assigns a category, which points at what a person supposedly is. The two feel almost identical in the moment of delivery. They behave very differently over years. In the late 1990s, Claudia Mueller and Carol Dweck ran a series of studies with 5th graders. Children did well on a set of problems and were praised. Some were told they must be smart at this, others were told they must have worked hard. Afterward, the children praised for ability were more likely to choose easier tasks, more likely to lose enjoyment and confidence after a harder set of problems, and more likely to explain their later struggle by concluding something about themselves rather than about their approach. The findings should be held carefully. These were laboratory studies with short time horizons, and effect sizes in this literature vary across replications and cultures. No sentence spoken to a child determines that child's life, and parents who said "you are so smart" have not damaged anyone permanently. What the research illuminates is a mechanism. When praise attaches to a fixed quality rather than to an action, later difficulty becomes information about the quality. That is the whole hinge. A poor result stops meaning this method failed and starts meaning the flattering thing everyone believed about me may not be true. Once difficulty carries that freight, a rational strategy appears. If any hard task might expose the category as false, then the safest move is to avoid tasks that carry real information.
Books are essential to help him understand the world around him and create new ideas. The home life of the gifted child should not provide any excessive privileges for him. Undue exploitation by either parent or child in their relationships can only lead to a distorted personality and an unhappy individual. Nicky comes from an average home, but a home which provides ideal opportunities for his development. Running errands for his mother helps Nicky to an understanding that helping other members of the family is a necessary part of growing up and sharing responsibilities. The pleasures of assisting his mother give him deeper understanding of his role as a son. A feeling of oneness is best achieved where the gifted child partakes of the normal routine of the home. It is important that he feel he is just one member of the family and not the only member. The development of good work habits is not only the function of the school, but of the home as well. It is here that Nicky continues to work on his assignment and prepare his report for tomorrow. Of course, a flexible schedule is essential for a balanced life, and on other days, Nicky may be outside playing ball with his friends or going to the CYO. For today, he is content to finish a task which cannot be set aside or solved except through diligent application. The completion of an individual job is as essential as group participation. Hobbies are necessary for a gifted child's growth. The recreational interests will vary with the youngster's desires. Nicky likes to build model airplanes. At this stage of growth, he's not uniquely creative and uses fabricated models. But creative inventions are based upon the simple functional skills developed in early life. Varied experiences of this type are required for the gifted child in order that in later years his interest may be channeled into an appropriate adult career. A normal sibling relationship is an important factor in the life of the gifted child. An older sister or brother may serve to create more wholesome identifications with other people. Nicky shares many ideas with his older sister, and it's common to find the entire family sitting together, discussing various topics. Often, family discussions are a means of encouraging intellectual individuality in the home. Most important, they're a way of learning how to solve the problems of the day together, to promote a cohesive family.
It is fairly well established that approximately 50% of the nation's gifted youngsters do not avail themselves of opportunities in higher education. This fact becomes extremely critical when the nation's needs demand more and more quality people. Consequently, throughout our country, there is an increasing demand to improve the education of gifted children. It is imperative that broad training in the humanities be a major goal of the home and school. Any undue emphasis for making everyone a scientist can easily result in a lopsided individual with a narrow point of view. The gifted child's interests and needs should be an important consideration in making a vocational choice. The starting point for molding a well-adjusted individual is in the home. Parents who have a balanced perspective of life will help the gifted child make a satisfactory adjustment. Many of the attitudes in the home are transferred to the school. It is important that a teacher be alert to any evidencement and try to assist the youngster to develop positive attitudes. Therefore, the home, school, and community must become a unified and integrated part of a gifted youngster's environment in order that he can have a meaningful life.
Every child has his own pattern of growth. When a child is gifted with superior mental ability, his achievement possibilities are rich and promising. But without understanding and wise direction, and the experiences necessary to the normal growth of all children, his life can be filled with complicated and serious problems. The gifted child is, first of all, a child, with needs which are the same as those of any other child. He wants to be like others, and become an active participator in the world. If he is misunderstood, or if the opportunities for a satisfactory degree of personal fulfillment are not made available, serious maladjustment may result. But antisocial and other negative characteristics develop only if homes, schools, and communities fail to provide the important avenues to full and positive relationships. When these essential aspects are provided, however, the child can develop his abilities and interests to full capacity and can find happiness in relation with others, with mutual respect and understanding predominant. However, it is up to all of us to do whatever we can to help achieve this goal. Next week, we shall consider the relationships of the child who is mentally retarded but educable, a child with a handicap but one who can be helped. Like the gifted child, the child with a handicap is yet a child, an exceptional child with a life that may be restricted, sometimes even distorted, but one which can grow and continue to grow toward fulfillment. As we know more about the growth and development of the exceptional child, we will be able to help him more in his quest for happier, more secure relationships in life. A child, new life begun, a life that may be exceptional, but one in which beauty and achievement should be reached in the highest degree possible.
Know you're enough, even when self-love feels tough. Breathe in and let go. You're worth more than you know. Know you're enough, even when self-love feels tough. Breathe in and let go. You're worth more than you know. Know you're enough, even when self-love feels tough. Breathe in and let go. You're worth more than you know. Know you're enough, even when self-love feels tough. Breathe in and let go. You're worth more than you know.
What the child hears is stranger and harder to say out loud. Somewhere inside you, there is a remarkable person. The one currently in this room is preventing that person from arriving. Whatever difficulty you are having is not a difficulty, because a difficulty would require help. It is a refusal. You are the obstacle to yourself. A child cannot argue with this, because the terms make argument impossible. To say I am trying invites the reply that if you were really trying, this would be easier. To say I do not understand is to contradict the file, the test, the phone call to the grandparent, so the child learns to perform a low-grade version of guilt, to nod, to promise, and to leave the room carrying an obligation whose size they cannot yet estimate. School teaches more than the material listed in the curriculum. Alongside fractions and photosynthesis, a child is being taught how to begin a task they do not feel like beginning, how to sit with confusion long enough for it to resolve, how to raise a hand and say the frightening sentence, I do not understand this, how to be wrong at 11 in the morning and continue existing until lunch. A child who absorbs content quickly can travel a long way without needing any of that. Early schoolwork is calibrated for a wide range of learners, which builds in a great deal of repetition. A child who gets the concept on the first pass will spend years being asked to demonstrate, again, something already finished. They will read under the desk or drift or become the one who answers before being called on, and none of it costs them anything, because the assessment at the end of the unit measures exactly the thing they did not need to work for. Adults do warn them, and the warnings are accurate and useless because the child is running a continuous experiment whose results contradict them every week. The essay started at 10 at night comes back with a good grade. The test, taken without studying, is passed. Half listening in class turns out to be sufficient. When adult advice and lived evidence disagree for 8 consecutive years, no child alive chooses the advice. So, the EASE teaches a curriculum of its own, and the lessons it teaches are crooked in ways that do not show up until much later. The first is that intelligence means speed, so understanding should arrive quickly, or it is not really understanding. The second follows: anything requiring 5 attempts must lie outside your gift. The third is more corrosive. Visible effort becomes evidence that the gift is draining away, so a person prays for how little they needed to work, reads their own straining as a symptom. The fourth does the most damage. Confusion stops being a normal stage of learning and becomes diagnostic information about the self. Everyone else's confusion means they are partway through. Yours means you were overestimated. There comes a point for nearly everyone where material stops yielding to comprehension alone and begins to require accumulation, drill, and time. Intelligence had been carrying the child upward like an elevator, smoothly, past floors. Other students were reaching some other way. When the elevator stops, the child steps out and discovers that everyone else has spent those same years learning to climb stairs, and that the stairs are not a punishment or a lesser method, but simply how the building works above a certain height. Praise is not one thing. There is praise that describes what a person did, which points at a strategy, a decision, a revision, a stubbornness that outlasted an evening. And there is praise that assigns a category, which points at what a person supposedly is. The two feel almost identical in the moment of delivery. They behave very differently over years. In the late 1990s, Claudia Mueller and Carol Dweck ran a series of studies with 5th graders that has since become one of the most cited and most frequently overstated findings in educational psychology. Children did well on a set of problems and were praised. Some were told they must be smart at this, others were told they must have worked hard. Afterward, the children praised for ability were more likely to choose easier tasks, more likely to lose enjoyment and confidence after a harder set of problems, and more likely to explain their later struggle by concluding something about themselves rather than about their approach. The findings should be held carefully. These were laboratory studies with short time horizons, and effect sizes in this literature vary across replications and cultures. No sentence spoken to a child determines that child's life, and parents who said you are so smart have not damaged anyone permanently. What the research illuminates is a mechanism. When praise attaches to a fixed quality rather than to an action, later difficulty becomes information about the quality. That is the whole hinge. A poor result stops meaning this method failed and starts meaning the flattering thing everyone believed about me may not be true. Once difficulty carries that freight, a rational strategy appears. If any hard task might expose the category as false, then the safest move is to avoid tasks that carry real information. Argue confidently about the subject you have read one book on and stay quiet about the one you have read 4. The person becomes more invested in protecting the appearance of ability than in extending it, and the substitution can go unnoticed for years. Eventually, there is work that cannot be done on comprehension alone. The location varies. For some, it is the second year of high school, when a mathematics course finally requires practice rather than insight. It might be university or a first job with a manager who does not care How quickly you understood the brief, a novel that will not hold its shape past page 90, a marriage in its 4th year. Some meet it at 19 and some at 45, and those who meet it late have usually been unlucky rather than blessed. Considered plainly, this is the least remarkable event in any education. Every serious discipline eventually exceeds a beginner's equipment. Difficulty is not the interruption of mastery. It is the location where mastery is manufactured, and everyone who has ever become good at anything has stood exactly there, feeling stupid for longer than they would like to admit. For someone whose sense of self was built on things being easy, the same moment reads as an exposure, not "I have arrived at the hard part, which is where I was always going to arrive," but "the audit has finally happened, and the books were cooked." Two responses tend to follow, and both are intelligent attempts to solve an unbearable problem. The first person tries to become disciplined overnight. There is a specific kind of document made at 1 in the morning after a bad result, a schedule blocked in 15-minute increments, built to erase years of accumulated failure in about 9 days. It is followed perfectly for 4 days, and then there is a Thursday with a headache and a family phone call, and by Sunday the planner is face down under a stack of mail. The correct conclusion is that no human being could sustain the method. The conclusion actually drawn is that the person is defective, and the evidence feels stronger than before, since they had the plan in their hands and still could not do it. The second person withdraws. They stop attending the lecture, since the lecturer is mediocre, which is often true. They point out that the grading is arbitrary and the credential a filtering device for the already comfortable. Their critique of the institution is sharp and not dishonest, which is what makes it so useful. A true thing can still be doing the work of a hiding place, and the giveaway is its timing, since the analysis of why the game is rigged tends to arrive within days of evidence that the person might not win it. Procrastination is usually explained as fear of failure, which is true enough to be unhelpful. It leaves out the thing that makes delay so reliable, which is that delay manufactures an explanation in advance. If the work begins 3 days before the deadline and the result is poor, the lateness absorbs the blame, and the actual capacity was never in the room to be measured. If the work somehow succeeds despite the compressed schedule, which occasionally it does, the legend grows. Look what happened in 3 days, imagine a whole month. Either outcome leaves the central belief undisturbed. It is a highly efficient system for keeping the most important question permanently unanswered. Unused capacity has one advantage over accomplishment. It has never had to survive reality. The novel that exists as 40 pages and a premise is currently better than any novel that has ever been finished, because it has not met an editor or the writer's own eyes at 8 in the morning. The application never submitted has an excellent chance of success in perpetuity. The instrument in the closet preserves a version of the person who plays it well. Something completed has to enter the world, where it can be misread, dismissed, corrected, or received with the mild interest that greets most competent work. It stops being a rumor about you and becomes a fact about you, and for a person whose worth has been staked on being remarkable, facts are expensive. The collector of beginnings buys the language app, the chess books, the second-hand guitar, the block of clay, and loves each most intensely in the first 2 weeks, because that is when a subject is still made of insight. Progress is steep, and comprehension is doing all the work, the condition under which this person has always felt most like themselves. Then the middle begins, and it is made of hours and returns, of the same passage played until the fingering stops being a decision. It feels like doing repetitions, which is why so many abilities get abandoned at the moment they were about to become skills. Chronic delay has many causes, and the psychological one described here is only sometimes the operative one. Attention deficit disorders involve real differences in initiation, working memory, and time perception, none of which are moral facts about a person. Anyone whose difficulty has persisted and cost them should be properly assessed rather than diagnosed by an essay. Perfectionism gets described as caring a great deal about quality, which is how perfectionists prefer to describe it. It functions differently. A standard set high enough becomes a permission structure, because if the piano must sound like a recording before anyone hears it, the piano stays closed, and the closing can be attributed to standards rather than fear. The thing being avoided is more precise than bad work. It is adequate work, which is dangerous because it is accurate. It shows the person exactly where they are, which is where anyone would be after that much practice. What they want is mastery without apprenticeship, competence arrived at without ever having been visibly incompetent, which nobody has managed in any craft. Underneath this sits a comparison that never gets stated out loud. There is the actual person. They have a body that gets tired at 11 and gets sick in February. They have a history, including several years that went badly for reasons partly outside their control. They have obligations, a rent figure, an unfinished degree or a finished one in the wrong subject, and skills at various stages, some strong, some embarrassingly undeveloped for their age. And there is the other one, the adult that childhood praise seemed to promise. That person finished school on schedule and chose the right field first time. They kept practicing through the year, everything else collapsed, and developed every capacity, since they never had to spend a decade on one thing and lose the others. They are calm, well-read, financially unbothered, and slightly disappointed in the actual person, though far too gracious to say so. The comparison is unwinnable because the imagined adult has never had to live. Every real life is made of foreclosed options, and each choice that produced something destroyed the versions of the person who would have chosen otherwise. The imagined one has made no choices, has never needed money or sleep or courage, has never apologized for a bad year, and is therefore perfect in the way only the unlived can be. That distance is carried for decades without being named, and it is easiest to see through its consequences. A steady job with reasonable hours and pleasant colleagues stops being a job and becomes a verdict, so the person can neither enjoy it nor leave it. A community college becomes a sentence rather than a place where somebody is learning accounting on a Tuesday night. Another person's success arrives as information about you, which is why a friend's promotion can produce a small, humiliating drop in the chest. Rest has to be earned, and since the debt is never cleared, no evening is fully off. Life stays provisional, deferred until the person is impressive enough to occupy it, and the years turn into a corridor walked through rather than rooms lived in. That deferral deserves to be taken seriously as a loss. What is mourned is real, even though the thing mourned never existed. Behind the delay, there is grief for someone described to a child so vividly and so often that the child began waiting for their arrival, and who was never coming because they were never anywhere. Grief of this kind does not need correcting so much as finishing, and it does not entitle anyone to a life spent in mourning. The category was comparative from the beginning. A child experiences the word gifted as a position rather than a description of their neurology. The world will ask what they can produce, and the world will ask it early and keep asking. Home should also ask whether they have eaten. The distinction that matters at the end is the one between possibility and debt. Nothing was lent. The attention a child received was not a loan against future performance, however much it was structured to feel like one, and the person carrying that feeling is not required to become extraordinary in order to clear it. Neither are they required to shrink, to disown what they can do, or to perform a humility that is only another way of managing the same fear the capacity can stay. The sentence pronounced over it can go. What changes then is the meaning of effort. It stops being repayment and becomes participation. A musician practices because the music deserves hands that can play it. A teacher prepares because the people in the room deserve a version of the idea they can use. Someone studies a hard subject because reality is under no obligation to be simple. In none of these is the work a defense of the worker, which is why people who reach this point often describe it as the first time the thing became enjoyable. This will not be finished cleanly. The comparison will return, usually somewhere social, usually as a small drop in the chest at someone else's good news. There will be weeks that vanish, projects abandoned in the middle, old avoidance in new costumes, and evenings when the whole structure seems obviously true again, that a person was supposed to be someone by now and is not. Understanding a pattern does not exempt anyone from having it. It shortens the visit. When the old voice arrives with its familiar sentence that you should have been extraordinary by now, it does not need to be argued with. Arguing keeps the conversation open. It can simply be answered, quietly and without heat. I am here now. What is mine to do? The child who was handed the word was not a rough draft of a more important adult. They were a whole person on a Tuesday, and the person they became is also whole, including the parts that went wrong and the decade that got spent badly. Nothing in the sequence makes the earlier version more valuable, though the praise had it that way around, always pointing forward toward the one who had not arrived yet. What a capacity describes is what remains available. It says nothing about what a life is worth. A mind that built a life instead of a monument has not been wasted. It went into a job done well for years, into children raised, into friends kept, into small competent things that never accumulated into a reputation, and any accounting system that reads this as a loss has confused a person with an asset. The future is not a collector standing at the door with a ledger. Nobody is coming to audit the promise because the promise was never a contract, only a group of adults in a warm room, hopeful and slightly clumsy about it. Which leaves the thing itself, still here, still usable, wrapped for so long. Take it out now and use it on a Wednesday for something at a scale nobody will write about. The problem at work that has defeated 3 people, the child at the kitchen table who cannot see why the equation moves that way. Let it get scratched. Let it be set down for a season, picked up in a different form, aimed somewhere it was not intended for. Let it be used imperfectly and often by a person who is tired sometimes in the middle of an unfinished life. A thing kept pristine is not being preserved. It is only being kept.
Hey, my man, what's up?
Hey, you look a lot different than I thought you would look like. Why do you have a tattoo on your face?
Aw, man, that's a long story. I can tell you about it when you get older, though. How you been, though? It's been a long time since I've talked to you.
Good. Mardi Gras just happened. My mom said that I was too young to go out with her and my grandpa for the night, but after they got back home, she woke me up and we walked downtown picking up all the cool beads. I got a bag full of them now if you want to see them.
You mean the white plastic bag with all the green writing on the outside? Yeah, man. I want to see those beads.
Cool. I put all my favorites on the top because the ones on the bottom get tangled up too easy. You know, my mom's always telling me that.
Telling you what?
When I get older. She's always telling me things will make more sense when I'm older and that I'll have more freedom. I just don't understand why kids can't rule the world. If I was the president, I would make the age to drive 8 years old so I could drive next year. I really want to drive.
Oh, trust me, bro. You'll get to drive. One day you'll spend so much time in a car that you wish you never ever had to drive again.
What do you mean by that?
You know, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. It'll make more sense when you get older.
See, there you guys go again. I just want to be an adult already. Being a kid is so lame. Hey, have you talked to Drake recently?
Nah, man, I haven't. We don't talk much anymore. It kinda sucks.
I'm spending the night at his house next week. What do you mean we don't talk much anymore?
I gotta get going, man. But it was nice talking to you again. Don't be so quick to grow up, bro. You got so much going for you right now. It'll all make sense when you're older.